is advised.
Hey everyone, welcome to the discussion for Lisboa, which is the second to last Vita Lasarda game that
we will
ever play. No, that we have left to. Excuse me, that we have left to play. Actually, sorry, that's not true. There is Mercado de Lisboa and then Kanban of the big box. So we have now played On Mars, Gallerist, Vinos, The Escapist. I think it was Escape Plan.
Was CO2 one of them? Or?
And CO2.
Okay.
Yep. So at least I've played all of those, and Kat has seen them all. But now you've technically played all of them. Maybe not all the way through.
Technically.
You didn't play On Mars all the way. No, you did. You didn't play CO2 all the way through.
Oh, yeah.
And from what I had heard through the grapevine, was that this was his most complicated game. After playing it, I don't think so. I still think On Mars is more complex. This one is very much a close second. If you don't know, it is about reconstructing Lisboa, which from my understanding is where Vital lives, or lived. What do you guys think of Lisboa?
Well, speaking as a more gateway gamer.
As a high-end, heavy Euro gamer, yeah?
Yes. way too much.
Is it way more than Vinos?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I don't think that's the question either.
But
that will be a question.
Well, but I will say for me, just too many things to keep track of, too many different ways to score points, too many resources, too many exchanges to have to make. But again, that's my mentality. People who like that, this has got a lot of those kinds of things to consider.
Yep. To comment on that, none of his games are for anyone who is not ready for a heavy Euro game.
Yeah.
This one in particular, each one of his games happens to have one crucial mechanism about it that you have to understand, or one major thing, and then everything else kind of supports that. Here, it's building the buildings.
Right.
Building buildings and building public houses, that is your main source of big points throughout the game. With Vinos, it was understanding the quality and selling based off the vineyards that you were running.
Mm-hmm.
I think On Mars had something similar about that. But so. A lot of moving parts. His games are of the heaviest I've ever played in terms of Euro design.
Yeah.
So they set the bar that if you're like, oh, this game is heavy, it's like, is it? Kat, what do you think?
I think for one of his games, it's not nearly as intimidating once you start playing it. Once you start to get the hang of it. I would say watching the video, learning the rules is you're kind of like, yeah. It is kind of intimidating, but I have a very neutral feeling for this game, which is a good feeling. I don't like it, but I do not dislike it. I didn't really enjoy playing it because I agree with Brett, where it's just a little bit too much for me. It just was.
I mean, basically, when they hand you a
the player aid. The player aid is an 8-page booklet,
right? Which half of it is literally everyone. I'd rather they have everyone gets one of these. Than just one that's half-ass off to the side.
Yeah.
Where constantly grabbing.
Yeah, no one has to be like, what does this do again? They could easily look at it themselves and be like, oh, okay.
Yep.
What does this action do?
Yep.
Everyone can do it themselves. But whenever you're handed your own mini rule book, you're in for a difficult time.
And to be fair, a portion of it is definitely just strategy tips.
Yes. Which is also, I don't believe, are in any of his other games, where it's like, hey... But I feel like he put a lot more effort into this because of the personal history of it. I completely agree, Kat. I actually think this game is okay. Out of all of his, this might be my least favorite.
It's okay.
Granted, it's his okayest. Granted, that's to say every single one of his games are 8s or higher. Mm-hmm. So, my least favorite of his are...
cream of the crap.
Yeah, pretty much. It's interesting because even my least favorite game of his is still a good game compared to a bunch of others.
Right.
Where it's like... I mean, I think what it comes down to is the mechanics here, I think, are extremely solid. Like, even after, because what we did is we learned the game and then played up until the first period, and then we were like, this was a while back, and it's just like, well, crap, there's another period.
Yeah.
Like, oh god. And then whenever we went to record, it was just like, oh yeah, I mean, it felt like, oh, yep, okay, oh wow, the period's almost over.
Yeah. And I'm very surprised that was 2 hours.
Yeah.
It did not feel like it.
Doesn't feel like it.
When you're looking at it, when you're reading the rules, when you
it's
are
intense.
describing it, you're like, okay, this is going to be a 4-hour game. Like, get ready. Each period is going to be 2 hours.
Yeah.
Because typically for me, like, when I hear, like, oh, it's split into a part like that, I'm like, it's going to be fucking long. And
Yeah, you almost think, okay, one period. Oh, how long does it say on the box? 2 hours? That's per period.
Yeah.
But that's not the case here. Yeah. And that is a very good quality of the game, that you're engaged the entire time. Whenever the period is ending, you're like, shit, I'm not done with what I'm needing to do.
3 more turns.
Like, I'm sitting there, and you can... It is kind of one of those games that the players can somewhat dictate when the period ends, because there was a point whenever it was either take one card and that'll end the period, or I could have taken another one and extended out until my next turn, which is exactly what I did. Because I was like, I want to get at least one more turn in before I know the period will end after me. Or it'll, whenever I take a card, that will be my turn. And it's like, okay, good, now I can actually plan for that. But I mean, what you end up really doing is relatively simple. You play a card into your portfolio, and I really like that, actually. I like the fact that you're rewarded for taking certain cards, so whenever you're looking at the cards to take, you're like, oh, who do I want to potentially visit to do their main action? Or, oh, that's a really good bottom bonus that I could use right now. Little free thing to then visit. So there is a lot of choices depending on what cards you want to play, and very few of them have penalties. And if they are, it's like, oh, this is worth 5 influence, so you have to lose 1 official. It's like, oh, okay.
Yep.
I never felt like this was one of those games where you struggle the whole time. I don't know if you guys can comment on that. Granted, I had 0 resources, and there was a turn where I was like, do I have to burn a card? Yeah. And I was like, shit, did I miss out that if you run out of resources, you're screwed? No, you don't. You can just visit and then get other ways to get resources. Did you guys ever feel like you were like strapped or stressed for anything?
I did not, actually.
Only for what should I do?
Right.
Just being overwhelmed by options and not seeing the long-term strategy. Just, what do I do? Well, I'll do this.
Right.
I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I'll do this.
And I think his games kind of reward that there's no meta. Where it's like, oh, this is the strat. That's just how this game is going to be played from now on. Right. You know, you and I went a completely different route in terms of games, and it was like a 79 to a 20-point difference, 19-point difference.
Yeah, and I went completely different than I have in the past.
Yeah,
just to see what would happen, and not terrible.
No, not at all. I mean, the only difference was, in terms of actual points through gameplay, you did better than I did. I just rushed these decrees. Because, in any game that's like, oh, endgame scoring, that's most likely where you're going to make up a bunch of points. Because you passed me throughout the game. Yeah, even when you had no influence and you were paying points, you were still ahead.
Yep.
And I was sitting there and I'm like, that's my only chance. He's going to have no influence. That's my only chance that I'm going to be able to win because he's going to burn his points down. And then Kat also, she kind of did a mix of doing the ships and selling, and then also getting a few decrees. Like, I built all those public houses except for 2. I think for 2 I didn't build.
Someone's got it.
But yeah, I feel like the relation, like the dynamic or the game dynamic is also interesting because it's like the fact that you can follow, which is an action I always like in games where it's like, oh, someone gets to do this, others get to follow either it costs something or it's a lesser power. I always like that because that keeps everyone engaged the entire game. And the entire time I was like, I don't have a king in my hand. I really want them to do a public house so I can follow. None of them are playing him, so I guess I'll take the cards and build all the public houses, all the things that get people to our stores. So, any negatives?
Other than what Brett and I have already said, which is just a little, it's not a gateway. It's not a gateway.
Yeah.
Too many options.
No.
Sorry, not too many options, just a lot of options. To some people, this wouldn't be enough.
Two things that I think are worth pointing out is one of them is so many little things change some little aspect of every turn.
Sure.
That we were not always keeping up, and we had to backtrack a couple of times and go, oh, and then this happens.
Oh, right.
That came up for all of us,
Mm-hmm.
so collectively we couldn't keep track of everything that was changing.
Right.
And the other one is, and this feels like a petty gripe, but I'm going to say it anyway. The concept of wigs as
I was waiting for it as victory points.
It could be a cultural thing that we are just missing over here. It could be big in
I think
Portugal.
it's a
it could be
theme
big for the
thing.
time.
I think it's the time.
It could be an inside joke.
It could be.
But whatever it is, it makes no sense to me.
Because actually in Vinos, did they call the points anything else? I can't remember. Goblets. I don't think they did that in any other game. I don't think they've called it. Yeah, so the fact that you collect wigs as victory points, I don't know. I don't really care that much. Yeah. It's just a word that they put in. It's a filler word. One of my negatives is actually that this player aid is so well done, but yet they missed out on one of the biggest things.
Oh, yeah.
Which is how you get points for buildings and how you get points for public houses, or because since that's the way that you're most likely going to be gaining points. Yeah. You would think that would be in the rule book at like the back, where it's like, oh, if you place a building here, here's how you math it. Number of relevant public houses there times the biggest number. If you build a public house, each building down that row or column or street or whatever scores.
Yeah.
And based off the relevancy of the public house, and that's because there were times whenever there was a strategy where I wanted to build a building, like I was like, oh, I need to build a public house, then build a building 2 times the points, but that's not the case. Right. I needed to do it the other way. So the way that you want to strategize and actually what's the word? Benefit from building those, or from what other people might build, that should be something that's in this thing, even though everything else is. So that is kind of a negative on my end, even though that this thing is actually just fantastic.
Yeah.
But I mean, at the end of the day, it kind of comes down to all of his games seem extremely difficult until you play it a few times and you kind of get it. Yeah. At least you understand the core crux, maybe not the nitty gritty of, oh, this thing actually causes you to move this down or something. But since all his games are solid in mechanisms, it comes down to theme. Mm-hmm. And I don't really care about this theme. I can't really say it's thematic. I mean, I guess it is. You have the different colored cubes, which is what values as, oh, I'm going to build a building here, but first I have to get rid of the fires, the rubble, and the water. Yeah. And it costs a lot of money to do that, but I never really ever feel like I'm rebuilding Lisboa.
I feel like if you kept reading, what was on your cards and, why you were going to certain people, what cards you got, I feel like that was thematic. And, as far as wigs being points, wigs are just an important part of this time period, I think.
Yeah.
I thought it was thematic, but I think I was like, oh, you're so gonna get the Lisboan thing. You're gonna feel like you're here in fire and rubble. And,
right.
But
I mean, in comparing to his other games, Vinos, I mean, I feel like you are running a vineyard. It reminds me, I compare it to viticulture. The Gallerist, I feel like you're running an art museum. On Mars, I feel like you're terraforming
running Mars.
You're running Mars.
You are Mars.
Yeah, I feel like I am Mars. Escape Plan, I feel like you're escaping from a heist.
Okay.
And then CO2 definitely feels like
hopeless.
Dread. Yeah. It's hopeless. You're just like, wow, we already fucked up. So all of the mechanics for all those games do feel like it, but here I wasn't. I get the Lisboa theme. I get it.
And the artwork and everything
Yeah.
is very thematic.
Yeah, it's all great. I like the mosaic tiles on here. I mean, even like you see the rubble, like where you're building there. Even whenever I was reading some of the stuff in the rule book, which I really like when he put like the Marquise and the King's roles. So all of that is in here. But maybe it's just because this was a real historical thing, and none of that other stuff is actually real. I mean, it wasn't. Yes, running a vineyard is a real thing you can do, but I'm not a huge history buff. History was never my favorite subject. So it's just like, oh man, yeah, Lisboa, that fucking sucks. An earthquake, tsunami, and fires, like, ugh. But it's so far that it's like that never really happened, you know.
Well, and you're right. I mean, it does feel a little like game mechanics were shoehorned into a theme rather than fitting naturally.
Right.
Like, I mean, when you build a building, you clear rubble.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
Right.
But you clear so little rubble that I would think that you would take all of one of those maybe.
And I mean, it kind of makes sense. You're putting in stores, and so you don't remove that much rubble for it. But whenever you're making these massive things, which we never read, but wasn't gonna butcher names. Igreja de San Nicolau, like that's a massive church probably. So that ends up clearing more rubble to make. And these are all supposed to be attractions that bring people to your store. Hence why you're getting wigs for them, I guess.
Okay.
But also, I kind of wish that these had actual color to them, not like a drawing with a blue or green shade to it. That would have made it kind of pop a little bit more. Because I mean, really, the only thing that has color on this are the traumatic events and our personal player pieces. Everything else is really just sheer white and blue.
Yeah.
So it actually kind of just looks like nothing to me. And then now, whenever I'm looking, I'm like, oh, I see people building ships. I didn't even see the cobblestone until we just started talking about it. I didn't see the design of the stores behind them and then these angels. I didn't see the destruction up here for all the cards. So it's kind of a vague, just overall tone.
Yeah.
Box art is awesome. I really like the box art.
You're right. Now that I look at it from the distance, this looks like money.
Right.
Yeah.
How it's generally, it's got one enhanced feature, and then everything else is just print and fancy designs that don't serve a purpose at all.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to that it is all mechanical, and with every single one of his games, it's just like, these mechanics click so well for me. Like, I love the I mean, it's not really a tableau build, but I love the portfolio build that lets you do this, or you can play it in there, and then others can follow, or you can burn it for a gold, and there's just so many avenues to victory. So, I say that about all of them. So then it just comes down to, well, if I'm going to rank them, it has to go by theme, or how immersed I am. Actually, I did notice on his box, earthquake, tsunami, fires.
Nice.
And I guess they're color coded by that because he's blue for. I mean, he's green, I guess, but greenish brown, a dirty green for earthquake, and then he's red for fire.
Well,
That seems a stretch.
Earth is green. He would have benefited actually from being brown because that's what I think of with earthquake, but I don't know.
Yeah, earthquake is different.
And
But
I'm
then
sure.
where does purple fit in? But then where does purple fit in?
Oh, you know where it fits in.
Purple.
Your color.
Oh no, I was talking about the three people that you.
I know.
went to.
I'm just saying everything else. What's the fourth color?
Yellow.
Okay, then that doesn't.
Which
matter.
if I can avoid it, it's the worst color. It's I mean, yeah, I really like the overall flow of the game. And I mean, I'm keeping it, even if it's my least favorite. I still, if someone's like, "Oh, you want to play?" I'd be like, "Oh yeah."
Absolutely.
And the fact that one of his games, I'm trying to think. I think all of his games end up being like, "Oh God," like, "Oh, it's a fetal game." Okay, and then you're like, "Wow, that was only 2 hours." After when you can go after and be like, "Oh wow, that was a lot shorter than I thought," then I think that's a good note in my book. Love the clergy tiles. I love games that give you special abilities that no one else can have. Those are awesome, and I love how they're not in abundance. Like you're not just cycling through them.
Right.
And you can't gain anymore unless this thing passes, and to gain influence again you have to burn one, but you're rewarded. It's like, okay, well this one's really good, but it's only worth 1 point. I guess I'll keep it. Ooh, this one's worth 3. You gain something, not just oh well, I guess I'll get rid of it just to gain 5 influence, you know.
And there's plenty of them.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's
the
not like
sexy-ass bag.
someone has the opportunity to hoard them all.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's really no way to hoard. I guess there is a race to ships. Because there's one
they
less.
seem like the most limited resource.
Yeah, it's kind of like, okay, well, I'm going to get this one because it's cheap. But it does give me, I think this one only let me sell one thing, but it gave me 3 influence.
Yeah.
And I think the higher you got, the less influence it gave, but the let you sell more.
Right.
But you had ways of getting more points if you were able to fill up your whole ship and have it set sail.
Exactly.
Which is really cool. Love the way that the market worked. You could sell as much as you want, and it wouldn't affect price. But if you produce, that's what caused it to go down.
That makes a lot of sense.
Although
an odd thing about the ships is we have never, to my recollection, we've never used someone else's ship.
Nope.
I mean, we don't want to give somebody else that benefit. We'd rather incur the upfront cost and then the long-term benefit.
Sure.
So it makes me wonder why that's even a possibility.
Probably because, if for me... Well,
but then again, it does take up a slot that I could be benefiting in other ways.
That's true. And I actually forgot that you could use that someone else's ship, because at the end, it was like... I thought you sold all your goods, and then you calculated your money. What I could have done on one of my turns is use one of yours, and because I was like, oh, I want to build again. Oh, shit, I have no way of actually getting money. So I'll just sell to yours, get, 12, 15 money, but you're going to get 3 points.
Right.
It's like 15 money versus, oh, now I can build here and get 8 points. You gaining 3, I still will end up getting more because now I have the money. That's probably where it comes in. But I forgot you can do it. So, but that is nice that if someone does, you can't be like, oh, I guess I don't get a ship. I guess I can't sell anything. It's like, no, you still can. You just won't get, I mean... The difference between first and second was 20-something points. Me using your ship over and over that I wouldn't split that difference.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
But yeah, I mean, you guys got anything else?
I will dispute something real quick.
Oh.
I think the board is phenomenal.
Really?
That's my opinion.
What?
Yeah. It just jives with me. I don't know.
It just jives with you?
I love the pattern. I've always loved that blue and white pattern that can commonly be found on fine china.
Yeah.
I will say it does remind me of about a year and a half ago I was in Paris.
Oh, okay.
And it does remind me of some of the mosaic tiling that they have on the outside of
Very beautiful.
There we go.
Very beautiful.
So it could very well be an homage to Lisbon itself.
Oh, I'm sure he very much did his research and put a lot of... there's a lot of history in the rule book, which is always great, because if you are going to go with a theme like this that aren't going to draw a lot of people, at least you could give them something that might interest them. Some background. It does sound interesting. Hey, you're trying to rebuild the city of Lisboa that was ransacked 1 year, 3 days of earthquake, tsunami, and then fires.
Ransacked by God himself.
Yeah, the wrath of God.
But I think that's really the only thing that I wanted to say, other than I love the board personally, and then I also wanted to say something about the little personal rule book. Essentially, is that he has designer tips, and all I'll say about that is that it's phenomenal because it really gives you something to help you get started to look for, and it gives you the why behind. It's like, oh, you want to get this, why? Because, and then
that's true. I think that was the thing that you said was there's games like these never really tell you what your goal is or why you're doing what you're doing. And he definitely does that in this.
He wants you to play the game.
He really does. I'd have to look at his other games and double check, but I don't believe there's a designer's tips in those. If you look at it, it's just get decrees early in the game because they can drive your strategy. That's what Kat was doing. Don't spend all your goods without having a way to produce more. So build a store as early as you can. Don't underestimate the power of public buildings. You control the game. They determine which stores score and which ones don't. They are free to open and quickly increase your portfolio and warehouse size. You may also earn wigs at the end of the game for creating the most jobs. So that which is fantastic, and I didn't read any of that.
Nope.
So I was just kind of.
That's why you did so poorly.
Yeah,
you're right.
Maybe you would have won if you had done.
I guess I did the very first one. Was I got a shit ton of decrees, but I basically picked these as what was already kind of happening.
Yeah.
But the other thing that he mentioned was they dictate what stores score, which is true. It's I was aiming for the sets of destruction cubes, of rubble markers, and whenever I just took a brown one just to get the 2 I needed to make the set, none of your stores scored, and I already took up that slot.
Right.
So it's like, that sucks. Now that slot's gone. So it is very interesting. There is a lot of variety to this game, more so than I think actually in maybe some of his others that I can think of, which is good. So that's that. Brett, you got anything?
Nothing has been said.
Cool. All right. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being perfection, 1 being hot ass, and 5 being average. Brett.
Again, hard for me. I'm torn between 7 and 8.
Okay.
My own personal preferences.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's definitely, I know, it's respectful. It would be an 8 for most gamers. For me, 7.
Okay.
I actually was going to say 7 as well.
I am saying
Yeah.
7 at the at the same time.
All right.
Yeah. So that's our thoughts on Lisboa. Let us know what you think of the game in the comments below. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you. Hey everyone, thank you for watching, and I really hope that you enjoyed the video. If you would like to see more of my content, go ahead and click that subscribe button and the bell to be notified whenever I upload any new content. If you feel like supporting the channel, you can go ahead and click that Patreon link to be taken to my Patreon, and any help is truly appreciated. Other than that, stick around for any other run-throughs or reviews or cool top 10s or whatever I feel like putting on. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you.